Hey guys, it's your favorite neighborhood bio wolf boy, SilverDFanng saying, how's it going? We're back with more reactions. This one was both interesting, historically minded, and kind of gross. All the great, all the great things you need in a YouTube video. So this is the history of spam. Have fun. Okay.
Spam. Some people love it, some people hate it, but everyone knows it. And while it does have a reputation for being cheap...
So this is the history of spam. Jay... Honestly, you know what? I'm okay with this. This is weird, but okay.
Because it is, it also deserves...
I will say, I've never had spam in my life. I've had poor moments. Luckily, I've never been poor enough to eat canned meat. That just feels gross.
Credit for saving millions of lives during World War II and the years following. So, to celebrate spam today, I'm going to be making a recipe from 1951 for a spam and cheese ribbon loaf.
I get it. 1950s was all about that mayo and gelatin. But oh my god, they didn't even cook it.
Spam. This time on Tasting History.
Oh, this might make me sick. By the way, tasting his, like, I have seen other videos from this dude. His knowledge of food is fucking amazing.
Popularity of spam has ebbed and flowed through the years, but in the early 1950s, it was a must-have for any middle-class cocktail party.
Yep.
The product, which had debuted in 19...
And I will say, so a big reason for this is after the war, canning became a massive industry in the U.S. And canners got so much money that they started promoting it. And they started promoting it in a really smart way. They promoted it to middle-class wives. So they would have magazines of articles about how to cook spam, how to, like, make it elegant. It's the same with, like, anchovies and, like, Chef Boyardee and stuff like that. It was all marketing, but the truth of the matter is the product was subpar. Because it literally is chemically induced, shelf-stable food. You can like it, but it's a lower quality. It just is.
1937 was one of the most successful that the Hormel Food Company had ever sold, and one of the reasons was because they flooded the radio, magazines, and newspapers with ads for the product, but also with recipes for it. This recipe appeared in 1951, and when in
like
color,
I said,
was definitely eye-catching. A zebra-like amalgam of canned meat and cream cheese.
This looks like something like, this looks like a hoe cake or like a zebra cake. This looks like something that company would make. Not made out of cream cheese and spam.
Though they use the more charming tagline, tender, pure pork spam joins with a zesty cream cheese mixture for memorable eating.
If you tell me what parts of spam is,
as a noteworthy appetizer.
Maybe call it pork. Until then, ain't pork.
And cheese ribbon loaf, but rather a spam cheese ribbon loaf.
Cheese.
Casual punctuation letting the maker know that this recipe is accessible to all. Even better, I love that at the bottom of the ad, they suggest that you tune in Saturdays to CBS to hear music with the Hormel Girls. They're just not...
I'm just imagining... Yeah, so these 50 women, it's just spam, 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 bye, spam.
Enough meat-themed girl groups around these days, and I think that should change. Anyway, for this recipe, what you'll need is 1 can of spam.
No.
And 3 ounces of cream cheese, softened. The recipe says that you can help soften it with milk, but I tried that and it ends up being a little too liquidy. Especially once you add the 1 teaspoon of lemon juice. Then 1 teaspoon of grated onion, 1 tablespoon of minced parsley.
So rather than adding cream, let it stand out for a little bit and it will soften. Or if you really want it now, 10 seconds, microwave.
And a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Now, this recipe doesn't actually require any cooking because spam is technically cooked in the can. You can cook it, but in this recipe, you don't have to.
I know it's cooked, but I would... Such a weird texture. Like, honestly, I think you should cook it just to sear it and giving it more flavor. Kind of like tofu.
Break.
This recipe does require is patience. So start by putting the cream cheese in a large bowl and beating it with a spatula to make it as smooth as possible.
Okay.
Then add the lemon juice and stir it in, making sure it is fully incorporated before you add the grated onion, minced parsley, and salt. Then continue to mix until everything is fully combined. Also, this is the first time I have ever grated an onion, and it really makes the whole house smell like onion, and my eyes were just... It was not pretty.
Yeah, grating onions is an old school technique that doesn't get used a lot.
And then pat it down with a towel.
Why is it that color?
To remove any gelatin on the outside. Back when this recipe was
gelatin
written,
and can.
Even more gelatin
1930,
on the Spam
1930s
itself,
double whammy.
At that time, the only ingredients were pork, water, salt, sugar, and sodium nitrate. But in 2009, they added some modified potato starch, which doesn't affect the flavor, but it does help absorb some of the gelatinous layer that accrues when it is cooked in the can. But even now, there will be a little bit of gelatin, so try to get that off. Then, as evenly as possible, slice the Spam into 8 equal slices. Then set them all out and get your cream cheese filling ready. And by that, I mean measure it out into 7 equal portions.
Okay.
Now, you can eyeball this, but if you want to make it look as close to that picture as possible, they really need to be even. So I separated mine into 7.
No, you've lost 75% of your audience by bringing out a scale.
Little cups, each with about
no home cook is going to use a scale.
Then it is time to spread that filling onto the Spam slices, and this does take a little bit of practice. First, it's best if you spread it all the way to the edge and try to make that edge flat. Also, while the recipe implies that you should assemble the loaf and then refrigerate
nice to meet you.
I tried that, and frankly, it did not work.
This is a horror show for someone who loves food. This is disgusting. God. America, why? Why do you exist? Why? Oh, I wish I had a crying, like, toggle right now. I'm crying. 1 second, I need to see my face better. Squint. Okay. I was about to call myself a ham, but that doesn't feel appropriate right now.
It made a horrible mess as the filling just
spilled
out the sides. And this is why I say the recipe takes some patience. But after I calmed down, I gave it a second shot so you can learn from my mistakes. One of the things that I learned in my second attempt...
Mistake number 1, making this dish. Mistake number 2, continuing to make the dish.
Attempt was to leave out the milk. It just does not need the extra milk. Cream cheese gets very soft on its own if you leave it out, so don't add the milk. Also, on my second attempt, I spread the filling onto the 7 slices, and then I set it into the refrigerator for 20 minutes to let the filling firm up just a bit before trying to assemble the loaf. So I laid out some plastic wrap and then rather gingerly set each slice beside each other in order to form the loaf. That way gravity was not tempted to completely destroy what I was attempting to make. Once it's put together, then wrap the plastic wrap around it and set it in the refrigerator for 4 hours or overnight. I did overnight so it would be nice and firm, all the easier to slice up. And
this is way too much
cheese,
this is way too much effort for this god-awful dish.
Firm up. Let us take a closer look at the other layers in this ribbon loaf, the Spam.
Time for history!
The history of Spam begins with the history of Hormel, or should I say Hormel, because while the company pronounces it Hormel now, at least on their commercials, I guess originally it was Hormel. It's kind of like Ralph Lauren. Maybe it sounds fancier, I don't know. But in 1946, there was a Life magazine article where they interviewed one of the family members who was in charge.
Yeah, that looks like a man that's about to create an abomination. I believe it.
Charge of the company, and he said that it was Hormel, as in rhymes with normal. But since the company today says Hormel, that's what I'm going to be saying for the rest of the video. So the company was founded by George Hormel in Austin, Minnesota in 1891. He had begun his career in Chicago, working in the city's slaughterhouses, and then after a few failed starts, he opened a meat packing operation in Minnesota. They also sold animal hides, wool, and eggs to make ends meet, and then added dried sausages to the mix and found financial success.
So far, so good.
But in 1921, George's son, Jay, returned home from fighting over in Europe, and he sat down and was kind of looking at the books and found some irregularities. First, he noticed that a lot of the executives who had been there for a long time weren't really necessary or doing anything and were just collecting paychecks.
If you were here earlier, wait, did I? No, I didn't. I tweeted it. So earlier I tweeted a comment about the whole V-Shoujo thing. I'm just going to quickly say, if your title is executive anything, that is a business way of saying, I'm here because either I know the right people or I put money in. I do not do a single thing. I have no real job, but I still get more money than 90% of everyone, and I'll be the last one to be slaughtered when this all goes down, because no one here actually works. We just destroy lives. As you can tell, I do not like corporate America for many reasons.
Weren't really necessary or doing anything, and we're just...
And yes, V-Shoujo is corporate America.
...just collecting paychecks. But more importantly, he found that the company's assistant comptroller, Cy Thompson, had spent the last 10 years embezzling $1,187,000 from the company. That's about...
Look, when you're an executive and you don't have a real job, you got to do something, so why not embezzle? Why not, be a massive crook?
$21 million today. With that, Thompson was jailed. A lot of the executives were ousted. And young Jay Hormel, he wasn't that young, I think he was like 30 at the time, he was put in charge of a lot of the company. By 1926, he had helped the company to introduce a revolution in the meat industry with the Hormel...
Get Papa Gun Run out of there. He doesn't know how to do his job. He just wants to pay his friends.
Flavor-sealed ham, America's first canned ham. This was shortly followed by canned spiced ham, the precursor to Spam, and in 1928, canned chickens. But what really made the...
I've seen canned chickens before. It is a horror show, guys. It is a horror show. Yeah, no, fuck it. I'm showing you this disaster. Canned whole chickens. Yeah, this is a real product, and it really does look like this. This is a abomination, and this is what Hormel gave us. You did this, Hormel. You did this. You started the trend.
The difference was not the products, but Jay's marketing. See, George was kind of old school and hadn't really done much marketing for the company, especially outside of stores. Well, Jay comes in and he wanted to spend $500,000 on marketing. George was like, that's insane, but finally he agreed, and it really paid off.
Yep.
After a successful blitz of magazine and radio ads, George put his son Jay in charge of the company in 1929.
Like I said, a big reason why a lot of these products became popular was not the product. It was all promotion. This really is a great example of how marketing really can sell any product if you know how to market it to and how. A lot of recipes from the 40s and 50s look disgusting, and a big reason is a lot of the products used are kind of disgusting, but they were seen as hip and seen as elegant and seen as new, because that's how they were marketed.
Just in time to walk the company through the Great Depression. The early 1930s put a real crunch on the food budgets of families all over the country, and the canned meat business started to fall off, and this left...
Look, the Great Depression was a terrible time. I really do want that hat, though. Those hats are really nice. I like those hats.
Hormel looking for cheaper products to sell. One new product was Hormel chili, which came out in 1936.
Okay.
But that same year, J. Hormel decided to use some of the more unwanted cuts of pork to make a new product.
The tenderloin.
See, pork shoulder at that time was one of the least popular cuts.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's actually really delicious, but it does take a long time to cook. It's good for,
barbecue.
Like barbecuing or smoking.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't that popular at the time, and so butchers always had tons left over. So Jay was like, we'll take that, we'll grind it up and mix it with a few flavorings.
It's delicious, Chef Spiral.
Canned product. It was similar to a canned ham, but it was going to be a lot cheaper. And Jay knew that it was going to be a success.
I'm sorry. Dirty Moore's Irish Stew. Oh, Dainty Moore. Okay. I don't know if that's better. It's either dirty or you have a dented can, which is not good. Either way, I can see why this company's not around anymore.
Success, but he didn't have a name for it. He couldn't really call it canned ham because it wasn't a canned ham.
Nope.
But he also couldn't call it canned amalgam of offcuts of pork mashed into a cube because that just doesn't sound that appealing.
Also, that already exists. It's called head cheese.
He did what anyone does when they have a question that needs to be answered. He asked his drunk friends.
Sounds about right.
On New Year's Eve, Jay held a party at his home for his friends, the executives, and their families.
That cigar is ridiculous.
Each person entered, they were given a slip of paper that was going to be part of a contest to give a new name to this product.
Bodie McSpam face.
All they had to do was write down a name and then give it to the butler, and you would be able to get a cocktail. And along about the third or fourth drink, they began showing some imagination. Eventually, Kenneth Daigneault, a local actor and brother of one of the Hormel executives, came up with the name Spam. Jay declared it a winner, and Kenneth received a prize of $100. Now, it's been speculated that Spam is a contraction of spiced ham, or some people have said it's an acronym for shoulder of pork and ham. But the company has never confirmed either theory, and they actually say that only some former executives know the true meaning of Spam. Either way, that was the name, and Spam hit shelves on July 5th, 1937. And with it came one of the most successful advertising campaigns in American history to that date. As radios around the country sang out, Spam, 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 Hormel's new miracle meat in the can, tastes fine, saves time if you want.
I love that they're even like, it's not amazing, it's okay, but time.
Something grand, ask for Spam. Baked, fried, grilled, sliced on sandwiches, diced in eggs, served hot or cold, Spam had a place on every plate in the country. When Spam came on the market, only 18% of the population ate canned meats. But by 1940, in a large part due to Spam's marketing, 70% of people were on the canned meat train.
Those sad people.
Spam got another boost with the outbreak of World War II. In March of 1941, 9 months before the U.S. entered the war, President Roosevelt signed the Lend-Lease Act, which would deliver food and supplies to those fighting the Axis powers.
Makes sense.
When looking for food to send to places like the Soviet Union and Britain, the government required a product to be easily transportable, it shouldn't require refrigeration, and it needed to be able to be eaten with little to no cooking. Spam to the rescue! In the Soviet Union, they called it Roosevelt sausage, and years later, the leader of the Soviet Union, Nikita Khrushchev, wrote of eating the Spam when he was in the military as a general. He said that there were many jokes going around in the army, some of them off color, about American Spam. It tasted good nonetheless. Without Spam, we wouldn't have been able to feed our army. In Britain,
if it wasn't for Spam, you would be speaking German. Remember that? Spam saved your language.
Spam was one of the few meat products that most people could get their hands on, though as welcome as it was simply to augment the daily ration, it also got a little monotonous, and by 1944, the West Sussex Gazette reported that Brighton and Hove hotels and restaurants look forward to the time when they may be able to place pre-war menus before a spam-weary world. Sadly, rationing in Britain would go on for almost another decade, so Spam was there to stay. Now, the meat that went out with the Lend-Lease program was absolutely the Hormel product Spam. But once America entered the fray and our soldiers started going overseas, the meat product that they were getting was maybe Spam, maybe not.
Knock off
canned
Spam!
Meat was a large part of the GI diet, and by the end of 1943, there were complaints about the quality of this meat. One soldier actually wrote the Hormel company begging them to stop selling their product to the U.S. government, even if it was just for a week, so he could give his stomach a break. This led the Hormel company to have to come out and defend themselves, claiming that the meat that the men were eating was not the product of the Hormel company. It wasn't true Spam. Spam ain't...
It was Mapam! Yeah. Damn knockoff Spam! Damn you, Mapam!
Spam. Since the war started, we have not sold a single can of Spam to the Army, the company stated. The quartermaster buys no Spam because the package size, 12 ounces, is impractical. But this led to a rebuttal from troops saying, no, we know that it is Spam, and someone actually took a picture of one of the soldiers standing in front of a bunch of cans of Spam. And it turns out that maybe some of the Spam meant for the Lend-Lease program had ended up in the U.S. military, and then it turned out that the U.S. military had actually ordered 150 million pounds of the stuff, so yeah, there was some confusion.
What?
But as the magazine Yank put it, what's in a name? That which we call Spam by any other name would taste as lousy.
Ha!
And whether it was actually Spam or one of the many other canned pork products that were being made for the U.S. military at the time, the soldiers call it all Spam. USO comedians quipped that Spam is a ham that didn't pass its physical, and Spam is a meatball without basic training. Some men claimed that Spam actually stood for Special Army Meat, and others wrote about it in verse. Now Jackson had his acorns and Grant his precious rye. Teddy had his poisoned beef, worse you couldn't buy. The doughboy had his hardtack without the Navy's jam, but armies on their stomachs move, and this one moves on Spam. Regardless of what the fighting...
They're doomed. It moves on Spam. They're doomed!
Men thought of Spam, it was pretty much omnipresent on many of the bases throughout the war, especially in the Pacific. And to this day, the islands of the Pacific are the undoubted champions of Spam consumption.
I was wondering when Hawaii would make
its introduction during the war.
Yeah, I was wondering when Hawaii would make its turn.
When recaptured Guam in August of 1944, they supplied the Chamorro people on the island with food for the rest of the war, and one of the main foods was Spam. This they integrated into their diet, using it as meat for many of their traditional dishes. And even after the war, this continued partly because, while the island was largely agricultural, the U.S. military took much of the land to build military bases, leaving those who lived on the island with a reduced capacity to produce their own food. And to this day, Guam eats more Spam per person than anywhere else in the world. It is even on the menu at their McDonald's.
Cool.
Spam then spread across the Pacific as the military went along. In the Philippines, it arrived in 1945, and it is still a part of their cuisine in dishes such as Spam Silog, which is a cooked Spam served with eggs and rice.
I've had a similar to this, but rather than Spam, they use sausage. It's way better.
The Isle of Okinawa still consumes over 7 million cans per year, and they even have a Spam mascot known as Spammy-kun.
Spammy-kun!
It's a bit of a different story.
Spammy-kun!
Many of the islands of the Pacific had their diet destroyed by Japanese occupation and so needed Spam to supplement that. The Hawaiian Islands were never occupied by the Japanese. It was actually a series of U.S. laws that led to the collapse of the traditional Hawaiian diet of seafood. See, even before the U.S. got involved in the war, the government was worried about the number of Japanese immigrants that lived in Hawaii. And so they started putting...
Time for one of the most, and this is saying something, America, one of the most disgusting things America has ever done to its people. Its people. By the way, I saw what you did there, motherfucker, saying Japanese immigrants. Oh, motherfucker. Most of those people were American citizens with Japanese heritage.
Restrictions on what they could do for work and where they could travel, and this included stripping their right to obtain fishing licenses.
Yep.
The problem with that is that the majority of Hawaii's diet was fish, and the majority...
Okay, he's not going to say it. So, in World War II, after the attack of Pearl Harbor, which, by the way, Pearl Harbor, the Japanese only attacked military bases and no one was killed. Well, no, people were killed, but no, like, civilians were killed. The U.S. Government's response to this was forcing every Japanese American to sell all of their companies, their businesses, all of their finances at a loss, pack up all their stuff, and head to internment camps. And that went on for a few years.
Welcome, Hex Gummy.
I read about this recently. Our private school never taught us, but yeah, because this is probably one of the worst things America has ever done to their own people. If you think, they must have like gotten that back, right? No. You can definitely tell after and before the amount of Japanese American owned businesses, and after still is just nowhere what it was. They destroyed a big part of their cult of their people because of fear of a different country. And again, these are Japanese Americans. They are American Japanese. By the way, also, hundreds of thousands of Japanese people signed up, Japanese Americans signed up to fight in the war for America, by the way. The U.S. didn't force them, not till later. A lot of them signed up because, shocker, they're fucking American and they want to fight for their country. But their own government was like, no, you look like the people that bombed us, so we're going to take all your stuff. Your relatives are going to be stuck here in an internment camp, and afterwards you're going to get none of it. You're going to start from scratch, and you're also soldiers, so you're going to get less than shit. Yeah, they were willing. Because, shocker, they're fucking Americans. It's bad. And we're seeing shades of it now. At least, well, okay, I shouldn't say now. So when 2001, when the Twin Towers were hit, they weren't put in internment camps, but anyone of Middle Eastern, not Afghan, Iran, whatever bullshit, all Middle Eastern people were pretty much put on a watch. And like we've heard like the jokes and like the not jokes of like, yeah, I have a Middle Eastern last name, so I definitely get special search, air quotes, every time I go to the airport. It's like, yeah, no, even 24 years later, Middle Eastern people are still segregated and misused and mistreated, even though most of them are American, are second, third generation, just because of the American people's fear of people that look like you, even though those people are not Americans. They are full on, well, I'm not going to get into it, but let's just say Afghan. And even then, not even all Afghan, like a subsect. But to the American people, you look like them, and that scares me. So I'm going to treat you less. Yeah. Well, what's happening today is more in sync with what happened in 1930s, 1940s Germany, where it has nothing to do with a fear-based event and more just straight-up racism and white superiority, which is also really bad. But the 1-for-1 for the Japanese internment camps is 2001 Middle Eastern propaganda. And as a Canadian, I'm going to say this, our history is also bleak. Not this bleak.
Of the fishermen were Japanese.
So back to Spam.
This led to a severe lack of protein in the diet of the islands, and so, with the military base of Pearl Harbor right there, it's no wonder that Spam came in and flooded the market.
You got the Laurentis.
Spam is still very popular in Hawaii today. In fact, the only other time that I've had it, besides today, is when I visited Hawaii, where I had Spam musubi. This is
like a Hawaii standout. Like, people will like call this like high cuisine. And this is what I was talking about. Spam could work if you treat it like tofu and marinate it. So this I'm actually okay with. Would I eat it? Probably. Well, I would eat it. Would I purchase it? Probably not.
Grilled Spam on a block of rice wrapped in nori, that is seaweed.
Laurentis is pretty.
Delicious and available at pretty much any market. Now, World War II was not the only war to spread the gospel of Spam, because during the Korean War, there were massive food shortages among the population of South Korea, and Spam was there to save the day. What made it unique is that eventually Spam came to be considered a bit of a luxury item in South Korea, because following the truce and the end of hostilities, or the fighting at least, the Spam was not allowed to be given or sold to the population. It could only be sold on American bases. It was licensing and all that kind of stuff. But turns out that...
I will say, if you want a really interesting look at like corporation and political like world building, it's weird to say that because it's actual history. On Disney Plus, there is a Korean drama called Uncle Samsic that literally takes place right after the Korean War, and it's about South Koreans trying to build up their country politically, businessly, and they do tackle the American Army connection very closely. I recommend it, Uncle Samsic.
Spam, along with other American products.
So Hex, it's 3.5 minutes, and it only happens once an hour.
Products like American sliced cheese often found themselves leaving these stores and going onto the black market where it could be sold, but at a much, much higher price. And so it became something that only the more wealthy people could even afford. And today, while it doesn't hold the same cachet that it did in the 50s and 60s, it is still a very popular item in Korean cuisine.
Okay, that's true.
And it's also given as gifts during several holidays. They even make these gift packages of Spam that include...
I'd rather go with the Japanese, what they took from America. I'd rather have a bucket of Christmas KFC than Christmas Spam.
Some Spam and then luxury oils, cooking oils, and stuff like that. And they can go for up to $100.
Welcome back, Hex.
For a gift bag of Spam. I'd say the most famous use of Spam in Korean cuisine today is in a traditional Korean hot pot called budae-jjigae, which actually means army stew. This was created during the war and blended traditional techniques and ingredients with those ingredients brought over by American soldiers.
I'm not going to lie.
There were Korean ingredients like noodles.
I'm not going to lie. This actually, except for the Spam, honestly kind of looks good. It looks like super comfort food.
Kimchi, mushrooms, tofu, and gochujang, which is a fermented red chili paste, and this was coupled then with Spam or hot dogs and American cheese slices.
I'm also not a hot dog fan.
It remains extremely popular in Korea to this day, and probably actually deserves a whole episode all on its own. So if you want to see that, let me know in the comments.
Yes, please.
Now, even as these wars faded from immediate memory, Spam continued to be a staple part of the cuisine in many of the places where it had been introduced. Even in Britain, it was very common, though it was often the butt of jokes. Most famously,
the British,
a Monty Python sketch.
The British love making fun of everything.
Spam. It was a cheeky commentary on the ubiquity of this food in the diet, especially in more working class establishments, and on its divisive nature. Again, you either love it or you hate it. In the sketch, the waitress at a restaurant rattles off the menu to a couple who has just sat down. It starts with different combinations of eggs, bacon, spam, and sausage, but by the end of the list, it's dishes like spam, 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 baked beans, spam, 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 and spam. At this, the woman in the couple admits that she does not like spam, and this admission causes a chorus of Vikings, who also happen to be at the restaurant, to start singing spam, 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 wonderful spam. Why there are Vikings in this sketch, I'm not entirely sure, but I have learned after watching many, many sketches of Monty Python, it's just better not to ask when something doesn't exactly make sense.
True.
Well, this sketch became extremely popular, and it is actually where the term spam, when it comes to emails and messages, comes from. See, computer enthusiasts in the 1980s applied it to any mass email or message that people just really didn't want, to the point of it being an annoyance.
I love
just
that.
Like the Vikings' repetition of spam annoyed the woman who didn't want spam in the first place.
That's awesome.
Spam continued to be a source of satire in both British and American culture, being featured in shows like MASH, songs by Weird Al,
Yep.
and of course, Muppet Treasure Island.
Did not
where
remember
the High
that.
Priest of the Boars, a group led by Miss Piggy, was named Spam. This use of spam actually led to an unsuccessful lawsuit from Hormel against the Jim Henson Company. Now, to this day, spam remains a source of comedy for many people, and yet it is served or sold at pretty much any grocery store in the United States, along with pretty much any mini-mart. Also, every year, Honolulu holds a spam-themed festival called Spam Jam, while Austin, Minnesota, home of Hormel, boasts the Spam Museum. Hormel has also released numerous spam-related products over the years, most...
Let's see, we got spam light, spam chorizo, spam garlic, spam less sodium, spam turkey, spam black pepper, spam tocino, spam Portuguese. Why? Don't do that to my people. We don't need your shit. Spam single class. Process on process. Spam hickory smoke, spam with cheese, spam with bacon. Some of these might actually be good, but
different flavored spams, from teriyaki spam, jalapeno spam, maple flavored spam, to Korean bar.
Maple flavored spam. It sounds like the worst sugary gelatin filled disaster that should have never existed.
Barbecue spam. There were even limited editions of pumpkin spice spam,
of course,
and spam figgy pudding, which was made with brandy.
Okay.
But none of those fancy spams. For me, no, it is the classic spam that is called for in this 1950s recipe for a spam and cheese ribbon loaf. So once the loaf is chilled, you can slice it up and serve. And the advertisement suggests it to be served with deviled eggs or potato salad. I opted for the latter. And here we are. The Spam and Cheese Ribbon Loaf of 1951.
Boo.
I have to say, I did a pretty good job
You
at
did.
kind of mimicking the look in the advertisement. I ended up making 3, namely because I screwed up the first one, which is the one that's been sliced up, and then I just had a lot of cream cheese left. Anyway, here we go. Let's try this. Okay. They're so salty, man.
Yeah.
That ain't it, kid.
Of course it's
That
not.
ain't it. So like I said, I've had spam before, but it was cooked, and I do think that helps.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Do I think it can work? I think anything can work, but you have to actually put effort. Saying, oh, it's already cooked. Yeah, but it's not cooked well. First of all, you kind of boil it in the can, which, like, marinate it, and then give it a good, like, color and texture, give it some crunch.
But I'm still not a huge fan of spam, even when it's cooked. But here, raw, not so much. Spam is kind of mushy.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just weirdly soft.
Welcome, Echo Crow.
There's no form to the texture.
No.
And
Hey, Crow.
But the big problem is that it is just so salty. They sell one that has less salt, and I was really tempted to use it, but I wanted to say, no, I'm going to use the original recipe. It's so salty.
Yeah.
And I'm sensitive to salt in general, but I think anyone has to think that this is too salty. And that's why what's really crazy is that then the cream cheese filling adds more salt.
Yes, it does.
It's like, you really don't need to do that. That said, the cream cheese filling is actually quite nice. Let me just taste some of that. Scrape it off.
Gross Oreo.
Even so. Too salty. That might be because it's leached salt from the
Bingo.
from the Spam. But the cream cheese is nice. The onion is really nice. It's actually really flavorful. But I don't like it. I feel bad because that's a lot of Spam that's not going to be eaten. Anyway, if you love Spam, bully for you. If you hate it, I understand.
Yeah.
And if you haven't tried it, go get some and
So the truth is, I actually haven't. I think I've had Spam, but I don't know for sure.
try it just to say that you have.
No, I'm good.
I know a lot of people who say, oh, I don't like Spam. Have you tried it? No, I haven't. Try it.
How about no? I can kind of. I've had enough foods to tell that I'm not going to like it.
And then
Oh yeah, the game was great. Thanks, Blue.
make up your mind. Again, it's mostly just the salt for me. I don't know.